Hello, America. I'm Brilyn Hollyhand, 13-year-old conservative commentator and editor-in-chief of the Truth Gazette here today, still in quarantine in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. A few weeks ago, we brought you an exclusive interview over Zoom with the My Pillow guy himself, Mr. Mike Lindell. And now we are back here with a guest I'm very, very, very excited to introduce to you all. Joining us now here over Skype is a man I've looked up to for quite some time, the man, the myth, the legend himself, host of the Rubin Report, and author of the new bestseller, Don't Burn This Book, Mr. Dave Rubin. Mr. Rubin, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Brilyn, I'm great. I'm thrilled to be with you. I mean, that was more of a professional intro than they'll give you on CNN, and I suspect your journalistic integrity is also better than CNN. So I'm looking forward to chatting with you, and nothing is off limits. You can ask me absolutely anything. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I've looked up to you for quite some time. I mean, your YouTube channel and just your show, as long as I've been involved in politics. No, we just talked a second before we came on air. But as long as I've been involved in politics, I've watched your show, and just the way you can bring together two people from both sides of the political spectrum, sit them down, have a civil conversation, and find some common ground, but really discuss what they disagree is absolutely incredible. And I just give you all the props in the world for being able to do that. But
cool.
First off,
well, thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. First off, let's talk about your new best-selling book. If you haven't gotten it yet, Don't Burn This Book, Thinking for Yourself in an Age of Unreason by Mr. Dave Rubin himself. Available now on Amazon.com and a bookstore near you. If you're watching this here on YouTube, we will have a link in the description to buy that through his publishing company. Mr. Rubin, I want to get your take on this. I know this is your first book. I just finished it. It was absolutely incredible. One of the best political books I've read in quite some time. But this is your first book. Tell me what made you decide to write it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because sort of like you, I talk to the camera, I interview people, I tweet, I do all the social media stuff. And the thing is, when you do what we're doing right now, you're obviously quite well prepared, which is fantastic, and it shines through. It's very obvious. But what I don't like about it, I like 99% of it, but what I don't like about it is that you kind of do it and then it's gone. Like you tape it, you put it out there, and then it sort of is. It just is out there. There's something about a book that feels timeless. There's something about sitting down, really fleshing through the ideas that I talk about, that my guests talk about, the experiences that I've had, going back into some of my personal history. Doing all of that felt sort of more robust and big. And that doesn't quite answer your question, because you said, why did I write it? That's sort of what I learned as I wrote it. I think the reason I wrote it more than anything else is that, over the last 5 or 6 years, I have got to sit down with some of the greatest thinkers, the most interesting people, some of our best academics, some people who have been, that weren't public people, who the mob tried to destroy and then have flourished after. And I think I've been able to incorporate some of the best parts of them, some of the best ideas, into a worldview that I lay out into this book that makes sense. So I wrote it because, as an interviewer, you're usually listening, but in this case, I feel like I have something to say.
Absolutely. And in preparing for this interview, I know you talked a little about this, but besides reading your book, I've also been researching people's reactions to your book. And the best description I found described it as a, quote, roadmap for free thinking in an increasingly censored world. Is that how you would describe it? And why do you feel the need to write this so-called roadmap?
Yeah, well, I like that description for sure. I mean, the idea in this book and the purpose of the title, Don't Burn This Book. Look, it's not that I expected, we were going to be in 1930s Germany where people were going to be throwing the book into bonfires. I'm glad to say we've, at least for now, passed that point in human history. Who knows, maybe it's on the horizon. But what I lay out here are very common sense principles. But we live in a time, as I say in the subtitle of the book, in an age of unreason. And when you live in an unreasonable time, well, common sense then does become dangerous. So, it's been really interesting to see that although people aren't burning the book physically, we've got these swarms of bots and trolls and organized campaign from Reddit and some of these other underbelly internet sites to ruin our Amazon reviews and write fake reviews and attack the online retailers and everything else. And in many ways, these people are just proving the exact point of the book. You're doing a modern book burning, a digital book burning, because why did the Nazis burn books? Well, they didn't want counter ideas to come out. They didn't want people to think for themselves. If you're spending a minute of your day writing a fake review or bombarding Amazon because you don't want someone to read my book, well, congratulations, you actually are a book burner. I mean, welcome to 2020. We don't do it with fire, we do it with reviews. So, many of the things that I talk about in this book, they relate to reason, they relate to logic. And I say at the end of the book, it's like, you don't have to agree with me on all of these things. I'm laying out a lens that I think, in this case, the classical liberal lens, which I think is the best way for a free society to flourish. I lay out all of my political positions. I don't expect that you agree with all those political positions, and that's fantastic. And hopefully, as I often say to Ben Shapiro, who I have some political disagreements with, over the course of time, you're obviously going to have a great career in front of you, and we'll pick it up in a year, we'll pick it up in 5 years, 10 years. Maybe you'll have shifted a little bit one way closer to me. Maybe I'll have shifted a little bit closer to you. But that's called being a human. That's called using your brain and your faculties to figure out how you view the world. And too many people these days just think, oh, I'm on the left or I'm a Democrat. That means I believe these 10 things. I'm on the right or I'm a Republican. That means I believe these 10 things. And really, those things can be mixed. You can be for gay marriage and for low taxes, but for some reason in the modern political sense, you're not allowed to say something as crazy as that.
Absolutely. And touching a little bit on what you just discussed, on the first page of your book, you say, quote, "The left is now aggressive, not progressive." That's one of my favorite lines in the entire book. As a former liberal commentator, can you talk about why you decided to leave the radical left as it's known today?
Yeah, well, first off, I'm very proud that I think that's the only time I say regressive in the book. Maybe I say it one other time towards the end, but people always, there's that meme of me saying regressive, regressive, regressive on YouTube. And it's a word that I helped popularize, but I do credit Maajid Nawaz with the phrase regressive left. He's the one that came up with the phrase itself. The idea was that, progressive, if you tell me you're progressive because what you want to progress towards is equality for people, meaning equality regardless of your skin color, gender, sexuality, all of those things. You want the government, in our case, the United States government, to treat everyone equally regardless of immutable characteristics. If you tell me that's what we're progressing towards, well, then I'm a progressive. Now, the thing is, we've already got there. We progressed there. We did it. It was the liberals who got us there. What has happened is since we got everybody to be equal, meaning no, you can vote, you can do whatever you want, regardless of those immutable characteristics I just mentioned. That's what a beautiful, that's what an elegant society should do for people, and that's exactly what we've done here. It's a beautiful testament to our freedom, because by the way, we didn't always have those things, right? We had slaves, then black people couldn't vote, but we freed the slaves, we allowed black people to vote. Women couldn't vote, gay people couldn't get married. We can go through the things that over time, rights have been expanded and expanded and expanded in America. This is an incredible thing. So if you tell me we're progressing to do those things, well, good. Well, now we're past the point where we've got those things. And the progressives have just begun their quest for power. This is where it gets dangerous. And this is where I would say the divergence is between the lefties, the socialists, the big government authoritarians, and the liberals, the true liberals. I don't want people to be judged by their immutable characteristics. The left is obsessed with, oh, black people must think this, gay people must think this, women must think this. And of course, what you do once you say that, black people should think this way, gays must think this, you're saying that means all black people think the same thing, or all gay people think the same thing, or all women think the same thing, which is patently absurd. You're not going to believe this. But black people can think all sorts of different things, and you don't know what they think until you chat with one of them. And that goes the same for everyone else. I have no idea what you think just by looking at you. I can say, okay, here's a 13-year-old kid, got a good head of hair. All right, that's all I know so far. I assume I'll find out in this conversation, right? So you can't judge people by immutable characteristics, because once you group them together, you will crush the individual. That idea is a core concept of liberalism. Liberalism in its truest sense, classical liberalism, is what I laid out earlier, that you want equality of rights for everybody. You want individual rights. You want that, and then you want the light touch of government. The other part where the left went off the rails is they want the government to do everything. No matter what problem there is, there's a government solution. And they don't know how they're going to pay for it, but they don't even view that as an issue, because they don't even think paying for things or knowing anything about economics is good. They believe our whole system of capitalism is evil, so they would love to topple the system while enacting whatever it is that they feel that they should enact. So that's why the left itself is no longer progressive, because progressive would mean you were progressing to equality, and then once you're beyond that equality, you're progressing towards something authoritarian. And liberals have been decimated in the midst of this. So I would say most people that would say I'm a liberal in the old sense, the JFK sense of liberalism, in effect, we're modern conservatives now. That, I think that's going to be the title of my next book, because I do like that phrase. That we're modern conservatives, meaning you don't have to believe absolutely everything that the conservatives believe, but I do believe that on the center right, there's a nice wide tent of, let's say, traditional conservatives. You got libertarians, and then you got the old school liberals who are going, hey guys, let's agree to disagree. You want to do it? And usually they say yes.
That's a really great answer. And a follow-up to that, you're a little changed from the radical left, is what we call it today. In your book, you call people like Ben Shapiro, Dennis Prager, Jordan Peterson, and others in that realm of politics some of the greatest contemporary thinkers. Is it people like them that influence you to transition from the far left?
Well, it's a couple things. I mean, it's partly, I've said this to Shapiro a couple times. Shapiro makes great arguments, obviously, but some of my movement, let's say, to the right has not been because of the great arguments of the right. It's been because of the hysteria of the left. I tried to plant a flag and say, lefties, let's fix this thing. You can watch videos of mine from 5 years ago. I'm supporting Bernie, and I'm talking about free speech and all of these things. So this isn't an imaginary thing. I think that's why people care about what I do, because I was open about my political evolution. So it's partly the bananas hysteria of the left, and that once you take one position counter to what they believe, they're going to boot you out. So, for example, I'm for gay marriage. I'm for legalizing marijuana by states if they so choose to do it. I'm against the death penalty. I make a begrudgingly pro-choice argument in the book. You would think I would be getting some love for the left. Those are things that are thought of as lefty, but I get nothing but hate from them. Now, despite the differences that I just laid out, the people on the right are going, okay, let's agree to disagree. Let's talk it out. I don't agree with you on abortion, but, let's see if we can create something here that allows people to think different things. So I would say Prager, Shapiro, Glenn Beck, Jordan, these people have all influenced me. I think I've influenced them in certain ways as well. And, if we were to sit down with, those 4 or 5 names and check off exactly what we all thought about a bunch of different stuff, I know it would be pretty mixed. Shapiro and Prager would probably agree on almost everything, but I know Jordan would agree with me on some of this stuff. There would be different little places where we would agree to disagree. That's a beautiful thing. And again, that shows you the richness of what I think is the center right now.
And that right there is what I love about politics. You can agree to disagree. Mr. Rubin, when I was researching reaction to your book, I came across a Business Insider article with the headline, quote, Dave Rubin is out of ideas. And to me, that was pretty ironic, because one of my favorite parts of your book is your, quote, 10-step guide for political authenticity, basically where you lay out your ideas for political authenticity. I don't want to spoil your book too much, but can you speak about some of those steps for our viewers to explain and why you chose to include them in your book?
Yeah, so first off, on that Business Insider piece, this is a guy who's written hit pieces about me in the past. It wasn't even a book review. It's just a guy that doesn't like me. And I talk about journalism in the book, and that journalists, quote unquote journalists, are the ones ruining journalism. That wasn't a book review. It was just a guy who doesn't like me venting that he doesn't like me. So, it's okay. That is what it is. Wait, sorry, can you ask me the specific question again? Once I started going Business Insider.
You're fine. When you lay out in your book your 10 steps to political authenticity, can you lay out those 10 steps and just kind of why you chose to include them?
Well, I'll give you the broad sense instead of giving you all 10 steps and giving you every little detail. The important thing about being authentic politically is that I believe that the most underserved group in America right now is the politically closeted. And what I mean by that is that there are just good people, and I mean truly millions and millions of good people that live in America today, that have a mixed bag of thoughts, but they're afraid to say what they think. And that political closet is so incredibly dangerous, because when you're closeted about anything, we usually think about the closet related to sexuality, but when you're closeted about anything, if you have thoughts in your head and ideas, and then you're afraid to say them to people, well, then they can get trapped in your head. And we need to exchange ideas with other people so that we can map reality. If you tell me what you think, I can either say, wow, that's a great thought. That's really cool. That's awesome. Or I can say, I think you're wrong about this, or whatever it is. And then we can have that little dance, that sort of intellectual exchange. And it's a beautiful thing, because maybe you change, maybe you stay the same, maybe you double down. I could do any of those things as well. But when you're in the political closet and you're not telling people what you think, I actually think that it can have mental and physical effects on you. And I'm not saying that people are in the closet over radical beliefs. They're about some of the very common sense beliefs that I lay out in this book. So even if you disagree with me, I really mean this, even if you disagree with me on any of the specific policies in this book, I would prefer that you get out there and say what you think. If you fight for it honestly, let's say you're really a big government lefty and you believe the government should give everybody all this stuff for free and free everything and tax the hell out of whoever you want to tax and all that stuff. If you fight for that honestly and you'll sit down across from people without attacking their motives or attacking them personally or the rest of it, I will gladly sit down with you and have that conversation. But the only way we even get to that point is if good people start saying what they think. And I will just say one other thing, which is that it's usually not lefties that are in the political closet anymore. They feel very empowered to say whatever they want and shout anybody down. It's usually people on the right who, again, have very, I would say, moderate political beliefs.
That's a good point there. And I know we talked about this at the top, but moving on to what everybody knows you from, your famous show, The Rubin Report, with over 1 million, yes, everybody listening, that's million with an M, subscribers. It's considered the most watched political talk show on YouTube, and you're known for discussing topics like free speech and big ideas. You've hosted people from all across the political spectrum, including Donald Trump Jr., Tucker Carlson, Andrew Yang, Candace Owens, who I've also got to sit down with, and many, many, many more. Mr. Rubin, just tell me why you do this show and why you think it has such a large viewership.
Well, it's funny because when I started the show, which was in September of 2015, I had done other versions of the show before that. I was with the Young Turks, which is a far left progressive network. And, we were doing more like panel, current events kind of stuff. When I started the show in September 2015, my first guest was Sam Harris. And I talk a bit about Sam Harris in the book because one of my political wake-up moments was when he was on Real Time with Bill Maher and Ben Affleck called them gross and racist, even though they said nothing that was gross and racist. And it was a real awakening for me and for many other people all over the world, actually, because it was this A-list actor screaming and emoting with moral righteousness and indignation that he was right and the guys across from him were evil. And it was like he was doing this to two people on the left, especially Bill Maher, who's been our most outspoken lefty for 30 years now in America in a public sense. And then to watch the progressive media and the blue check mafia on Twitter all say Bill Maher's a racist. And it's like, what? He's not a racist. Nobody thinks Bill Maher's a racist. But just because Batman said it, now everyone thinks that, Bill Maher and Sam Harris are racist. I think that once that happened, and I interviewed Sam for that first show, I thought, whoa, I just did something important. I allowed Sam to explain his ideas. We clipped it in short YouTube clips so that, if somebody was to lie about him, he would be able to say, here's a 4-minute video explaining what the truth is. And we did about 6 of those. And then we put out the full thing as well. But I really felt that it felt important. And I guess more than anything else, 2015 is not that long ago, but it was a time when Snapchat was just starting. And remember Vine videos? You probably don't even remember those. Were those 6-second videos. Everything was getting shorter and shorter and shorter, the Facebook news feed, Twitter. And I thought, this is not good for anybody. We're watching CNN. You got 8 heads in a box. They're all screaming at each other. Nobody's making any sense. You feel angrier or dumber after. Let me do an old school interview show. And I'm proud to say that my friend and mentor, and as I describe him in the acknowledgments of the book, bonus grandfather, Larry King, he brought us over to Aura TV and he said, Dave, do whatever you want. And we started having interesting long-form conversations, which now everybody's doing. And I guess I was a little ahead of the curve on it. But I'm thrilled because every time I meet a good interviewer like you, I'm like, great. That means this thing matters. That means this is working. And I love competition. I love the idea that we can get more ideas out there. So it's all good.
And I want to respect the time you've given us. This will be our last question. What I said in the intro, bringing you in here, was completely true. I do look to you for advice and wisdom in the way you host your show and conduct interviews with some of the biggest names in politics. Closing this out here, what advice do you have for me as a young and inspiring political commentator?
Oh, you're on your way, man. I mean, it's very obvious. You're a total pro. You do research. You're everything that you've done here. Your questions were good and pointed and interesting. You obviously read the book. You know what you're doing. There's almost nothing I can tell you that you don't know already other than keep going. Don't stop. That's it. Just keep going. If you believe in what you're doing and you feel good about your work, and you feel that you're relatively happy in life. And the reason I say relatively happy is that happiness is a long project that it's going to take you more than 13 years to really figure out. But if this is giving you purpose, if you wake up every day and you go to school or whatever you're doing, but that you love this, then this is what you got to do. And the fact that you figured it out at 13, you're about 20 years ahead of me, roughly. So you're in good shape. And by the way, I see all these college students that are thinking about all of this stuff, and I wasn't thinking about it back then. I was probably playing too many video games and wasting too much time. It's okay because I got here. But to meet a 13-year-old that cares about this stuff, that knows why they think what they think, and is interested in more of these conversations, there's nothing I can tell you, man. You're doing it. So just keep doing it.
Well, thank you so much. That means a lot. And hey, anytime you need a guest to come on the Rubin Report, you got my contact information.
I told you, you're a pro, man. You're doing it.
Absolutely. Just thank you so much for giving us this time. I know you're crazy busy, been doing all these media hits, but make sure to go buy Don't Burn this book. It's really, really great. Truth Gazette endorsed here. We'll have a link in description with his publicist to go buy that. You can also go to Amazon.com or any bookstore near you. Make sure you go check out thetruthgazette.com and follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, as well as Dave Rubin. Mr. Rubin, just thank you so much. It means the world for you to be here.
Brilyn, you're an absolute pro. I look forward to watching you take over Fox News or whatever's next.
Well, stay safe, stay healthy, and enjoy quarantine.
You too.